is to go to the lowest level, the center of your house, to seek shelter. If you're actually out traveling, maybe you're hearing this on the radio or listening to us on the app, get out of your car or mobile home. If you're outside, try to get to a ditch or a low spot, just anywhere to take cover. If your home does not have a basement, as Cindy mentioned, look for the most interior part of your home. She suggests perhaps a bathroom or something like that. But again, we are right now in this tornado warning. It's not set to expire for at least another 20 minutes. And if anything, Cindy, you say this system is looking very strong at this point, not weakening at all.
No, and I expect as this cell and the rotation that we've been monitoring continues to march its way eastward, we're going to see things get extended. We're going to continue to monitor this across the Cape, I think, all the way as it makes its way on toward Cape Cod Bay. But the eastern extent right now of this tornado warning is toward New Seabury. It doesn't quite make its way to Mashpee just yet. So if you are on the Cape, say you're in the Sandwich area, it is absolutely pouring right now. And you may be hearing some thunder in the distance. We're seeing a couple of lightning strikes here toward Falmouth. Falmouth, you are in this tornado warning, and it's all in response to the rotation that we've been tracking here. And this rotation is something that we have been watching for a couple of hours. And let me just perhaps AJ, you can help me here. We're seeing, wow, that is much, much brighter than it was before. This right here is an indication of very strong winds, likely perhaps gusting to around 60 miles per hour, damaging for sure. Just south of Falmouth right now, that coupling is not quite as tight as it was before. It's always good when you're looking at the velocity scans to kind of get a sense of the trend on how it's been moving, whether or not that is holding together or not. So maybe we could put this in motion and you'd be able to see whether or not it is holding together. You see how it was actually a little bit tighter back here, and now it's gotten a little bit more broad. Nonetheless, as Kellyanne was mentioning, whether or not it's actually rotating, this is over water, this whole widespread area where you see these bright pinks in here, those are very strong winds. They could be gusting 40, 50, 60 miles per hour, certainly enough to do some damage. And we went through this last night on the Cape with these thunderstorms that produced a lot of wind damage in different areas, yes, but this entire cell is moving toward the northeast, and it is moving fairly quickly at about 30, 35 miles per hour. So this is something that we're going to continue to monitor. But around the Falmouth area right now, you're probably getting some stronger winds. You're hearing the thunder. You're seeing the lightning. This cell is tracking toward the east and the northeast. So Katuitt, you're eventually going to get in on this. Mashpee, you're eventually going to get in on this. But it is this rotation that has prompted the tornado warning. At this point, we have not had any confirmed sightings of waterspouts. This rotation at the moment is out over the water here, just north of Martha's Vineyard, north of Oak Bluffs at this point, south of Falmouth. So between the two land areas, but as it continues on this trajectory, you can see where it is headed toward New Seabury. So if this circulation is indeed holding together and it does come on shore, this is likely the area that would happen. Right now it is 11:27. This tornado warning goes until 11:45 this morning, but as the cell continues to shift eastward, it is likely going to get extended. So we want to send it back on over to Erica right now, because I understand you have someone to speak with, an official from MEMA.
Cindy, that's right. Chris Bessie is on the phone with us. So Chris, thanks for checking in with us from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. So you were with us last night as well, and you've been through this before. What is your biggest piece of advice for people who are on that part of the Cape right now, the Falmouth area?
The biggest thing is for people that are in that tornado warning area, as Cindy was mentioning, to make sure they're taking shelter. We want people to be indoors. Hopefully, if they have a basement, to go there. If not, the lowest room in their home or their office building, wherever they may be. And inside the building, sort of into the center of the building if they can, away from the outside windows and walls. Those are really the places that are safest to be in a severe storm like this.
And watching this storm develop, for those maybe just watching on TV, if they haven't seen it get to their area yet, this is nothing to kind of take lightly.
No, it can be very serious. You know, we don't ever know if there's a tornado in there, but based on the information from the National Weather Service, they're seeing that rotation, that they're worried about that there could be a tornado. So we really want people to take shelter and be safe during these times.
For people who perhaps are out and about, maybe they got an alert on their phone and they're now watching on our app, what would you suggest to them?
So the biggest thing is if there's a safe building they can get to, that's always the safest place. Vehicles are not the safest place to be in a storm like this. But so people can get inside, any type of sturdy building is really the best.
And Chris, you have a number of tips just on the website there, massachusetts.gov. What do you suggest as this perhaps kind of gets closer to people or it expires? Because you have tips of what to do even after the tornado. If you have damage, if you see down lines, down trees, we've already seen a lot of weather damage on the Cape from last night.
Yeah, the biggest thing in a storm like this is really want to make sure people are safe. So anytime after a storm, whether it's a severe thunderstorm or a tornado, the people are safe out there so that if there are down power lines, the people are staying away from them and reporting those down lines to the local 911. If there are flooded roadways, we know we're seeing a really heavy rainfall amounts out there that people aren't driving through flooded roads. Sometimes we see cars get stuck in roads that are flooded and people have to be rescued. Really want to keep people off those flooded roadways as much as possible.
And Chris, since last night, have you been hearing reports of any significant issues that we should be aware of?
The biggest thing we really saw last night was some very isolated flash flooding and some trees and limbs down, a few lightning strikes onto houses and things like that. But overall, no major structural damage, mostly trees and some power lines and things like that. But something that we typically see throughout the course of season like this when we do see these severe thunderstorms.
And you have folks ready to respond to this latest warning?
Yeah, so we'll be in touch with the local officials in that area, and if there's any situations that they're dealing with that they require any assistance from us at the state, we're always prepared to help them if necessary.
All right, Chris Bessey, thanks so much for checking in with us. So again, the biggest tip is to really seek cover if you're in this area. Again, the Falmouth area near Martha's Vineyard and heading at this point really up the coast. We want to check back in with Cindy to see what the storm is doing right now. Cindy?
Yeah, it's producing a lot of rain and also gusty winds. That is a big concern. But the tornado warning does include the Falmouth area over to New Seabury and the northern part of Martha's Vineyard. But so far, that really circulation that we've been concerned with has basically maintained itself over the water. It's likely been producing a water spout, but we haven't had any confirmation of that as of this point. So at this point, this is radar indicated. That is why the tornado warning exists. But the concern is that this area right here, which is north of Oak Bluffs and south of Falmouth, is going to be heading right toward the New Seabury area. And then eventually, as it continues to shift eastward toward Osterville, Mashpee area could be impacted by this. But do notice this bright area of pink. These are showing you the very strong winds in the thunderstorm, and we've actually measured gusts. Did you say it was Woods Hole, AJ? 46. Yeah, to 46 miles per hour, and that is a good distance from the strongest winds that we're seeing here in this velocity scan. So certainly the potential for wind gusts 50, 60 miles per hour, perhaps even higher, as this continues to shift eastward here. And it's a fairly broad area. Now, in terms of the rain, this is the radar, so you're seeing that all the way over to Hyannis. I mean, these yellows are indicating, downpours, perhaps half an inch of rain per hour. So very heavy rain for a widespread area. But the concern for the rotation is a much smaller area at this point. But the threat for damaging wind gusts, you can see that extends pretty broadly to the north and south. So a lot of elements with this, but it seems like this is a situation that we have seen quite often in the summer months around here lately. I mean, just last night we had a tornado warning for parts of the Cape. The setup in the atmosphere right now is there's a frontal boundary that is basically stalled over this area. And this particular rotation actually has to do with an area of low pressure that we have been watching for several hours. It made its way out of the New York City area this morning where it produced some flooding, and it's been skirting the south coast here of Long Island, and now it's working into our area. So until this clears the coast, we're going to be basically under this threat of these rotating cells here for the next few hours. So right now that tornado warning is in effect, and it is in effect until 11:45, so about another 15 minutes or so. And it is most concerning at this point east of Falmouth toward the New Seabury area. If you are in this location and you are watching us right now, you need to get away from the windows. You need to go to the lowest level of your basement, and you need to take this seriously here, because this is something that could produce some damage as it comes ashore, and it's going to happen very quickly if it does so. So these are, again, some of the safety procedures at this point, and the concern is primarily from the wind, but also we've seen some flooding, and the rain is something that is extended over a much larger area. You can see the rain right now is very heavy around Falmouth. It's heavy around the Mashpee area as well. And let's see, you can see there have been a couple of lightning strikes. Those seem to be waning at this point, which may be an indication that this storm is pulsing. Some Sometimes they pulse up and then they pulse down, but still a very good signature here that we are getting stronger winds, and still noting this rotation here, primarily over the water, south of Falmouth, north of Oak Bluffs, and it is moving toward the northeast at about 30-35 miles per hour, and that is going to continue to lift it up in this direction. And you can see here the movement. The green, the wind is moving this way, the red, it is moving this way. So it is in between that we are most concerned with this particular location. If there were a waterspout occurring, this is where it would be. And of course, if it moves onto land, that is where we could have a tornado. Let's check in with Kellyanne to see if we have any reports at this point. Again, a lot of people are on the Cape. It's July, Kellyanne, and people are, trying to enjoy perhaps vacation. And here it is, just been a rainy, cool day, which again, at the surface seems odd that we've been tracking this severe weather. But again, it's a setup in the atmosphere that we've seen multiple times so far this summer.
That's a great point. I think that's concerning in itself, is that there is a lot of rain out there, and that makes it difficult to even spot this sort of thing that is occurring. And I think it has kind of allowed people to kind of let their guard be down a bit, but you really shouldn't at all by any means. In fact, I want to talk a little bit more about that rotation that we're watching here in the velocity. You can see just how bright it is. And of course, the rotation itself is that area that we're watching here that is luckily over the water. That is really just great news there, is we're just seeing that rotation saying just southwest, or southeast, I should say now at this point, of Falmouth right now. But one thing I want to kind of focus on is the wind that is outside of that rotation, because it is incredibly strong. This bright area of red indicating where we're seeing that very strong wind that's moving away from the radar. That's what the red means. The green means inbound, or wind that's going toward the radar. So as I focus in here, in particular, East Falmouth, we're getting in on some of the strongest of the wind right now. Those wind gusts, the latest report we did have was out of Woods Hole. However, that wind gust was at 46 miles per hour. Radar indicated right now wind gusts near 50 possible within this band of very strong wind that is pushing through. And then, of course, that's associated with the outside of that rotation, which is currently over the water. So again, you might not have a tornado in your town, but you will see this incredibly strong wind that is making its way north and eastward toward New Seabury, making its way through East Falmouth right now. I'm going to stay nice and local here, because even as we move northward toward Mashpee, we're seeing a very strong wind gust right now, nearing 50 miles per hour as well. Vineyard Haven just coming in. Thank you, AJ, for that. Wind gust near 69 miles per hour. So let me take you down to Vineyard Haven here, and you can see exactly why that's occurring, because we do have within a strong area of red and brightness on your screen the indication of very strong wind that is moving through. Oak Bluffs, watch for that. That is moving through right now on your doorstep. I'm going to take you back toward the Cape, though, because you can see here the Mashpee area, you're getting in on that strong